When you're adding and subtracting algebraic fractions, the best strategy is to just keep in mind what you would do, what steps you would follow if you were adding and subtracting fractions that didn't have any algebra in them, because it's the exact same steps. So let's just review those steps before we start. Here we're adding a quarter and a third. So the first thing that we need to do is make common denominators. Now we're going to make a common denominator of 12, and that's because 12 is the lowest common multiple of 4 and 3. Now to find the denominator that you need, you can, at a pinch, always multiply the two denominators that you have together, but sometimes there'll be a lower one. For example, if I was adding quarters and halves, I wouldn't need to make eighths, I could just make quarters, and that's because 4 is the lowest common multiple of 4 and 2. So always have a look at what common denominator you're making and check whether it's a sensible one. It's best if it's as low or as small as it can be. Now we need to think, okay, what do I do to 4 to turn it into 12? I multiplied it by 3. So if I'm going to multiply the denominator by 3, I have to do the same thing to the numerator. So I need to do 1 times 3 to get 3. And over here, what have I done to 3 to turn it into 12? I've multiplied it by 4. So I need to do the same to the top, and 4 is 4. Now I've got my common denominators. I can just say I've got 3 twelfths plus 4 twelfths. It's like you're saying, how many twelfths have I got? Well, I've got 3 of them, plus another 4 of them. I've got 7 of them. So the steps there, make the common denominators, and then we need to add the numerators together while keeping the same denominator. So over here, we've got a range of questions that get increasingly a little bit more tricky. In the first one, we've already got common denominators, so we're already at this step. So we know that our answer is going to be in fifths, and it's like we've been asked, how many fifths have you got? Well, I had X of them, and then you gave me Y of them, and now I must have this many plus this many. Now, we can't add X and Y because they are not like terms, but we can just write them both down. X plus Y, that's how many we've got, and that's as good as that can get. For the next one, we don't have common denominators, so this one will be a two-step process. We need to make the common denominators first. Now, the smallest common multiple of 2 and y has to be 2 times y, which is just 2y. So I'm going to start by changing my question like that. Now I need to think, what did I do to 2 to turn it into 2y? I multiplied it by y. So I need to do the same to the top. And multiplying x by y gives me xy. And what did I do to y to turn it into 2y? Well, I multiplied it by 2. So I need to multiply the top by 2 as well. And that gives me 6. Now I've got my common denominator. It's like here when we're dealing with our twelfths. Our answer will have that same denominator on the bottom. In this case, it's 2y. And on the top, we need to just add together the two terms that are there. Sometimes they'll be like terms and they'll add together, like 3 plus 4 is 7, and other times they won't, and we can just write them both down. In this case, we've got xy plus 6. Sometimes you need to just extend your line out to make it long enough to hold the numerator. Sorry, that's a little bit messy. All right, the last one. Now, we've got 9c and we've got b. We can multiply those together if we want, but here's a trick. If you can simplify up one of your fractions before you start, you might as well do that because that will make your answer simpler and it saves you from trying to simplify at the end, which will be more difficult to do. So always look at your fractions and check whether or not you can simplify them before you start. Here I can see I've got 3ab over 9c, so I can divide the top by 3, and that just gives me one lot of ab, and divide the bottom by 3, and that gives me 3c. So now, looking for my common denominators, if I have 3c and I've got b, the lowest common denominator is literally just multiplying those two together, and I've got 3bc on the bottom of my fractions. Now, what did I do to 3c to turn it into 3bc? I multiplied it by b, didn't I? So I need to do the same to this ab. And if I've got ab multiplied by another b, that gives me ab squared. And over here, what did I do to b to turn it into 3bc? I multiplied it by 3c. So I need to do the same to this 6. So I've got 6 times 3c, sorry, so that gives me 18c. Okay, next step. It can be tempting to look at these parts and actually then simplify them. But if you do that, you're going to end up back at the start where your question is. So we don't want to simplify at this point. What we want to do instead is just write down our denominator, which is 3bc, and then write down our two terms on the top and consider whether or not they're like terms. In this case, they're not, because we've got ab squared minus 18c, and they don't have any common factors, so we can just write them down like that.